light's supposed to turn on this thing?
It's now 7, so I'm gonna start it.
I pressed it.
Is it recording?
Please connect computer to the.
It's not turning red, so. Usually does. Supposed to like hold it for a second. Last time you did finance, it turned red.
Yes. I believe it did, yeah.
Somebody in there? Are we recording?
All right, we're gonna start it. All right, a meeting of Planning and Economic Development Committee was held today, Wednesday, March 18th, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, and duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A2. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Melbourne Moran Jr., Chairman.
Here.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Derek Tebow is here. Alderman Ernest Jetty.
Absent.
Alderman Tyler Govea.
Here. And Alderman Jetty notified me that he would not be able to be here tonight due to illness.
So we have 4 out of 5. We also are in attendance with Liz Hannum, Economic Development Director, and Megan Karen. Megan is the Chief of Staff of the Mayor.
All right. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? None? All right. Discussion or presentations? Update on the place brand audit. I'll recognize Director Hannum.
Yes. So earlier last year, we started a place brand audit, which we wanted to give you an update on today. We'll go through kind of an introduction of where we started, help you understand how we got to where we are, and then the services and scope of the project, and then we'll get into the findings, which is pretty lengthy, but we did cut it in a quarter of the length of the real audit, so hopefully we can get through it fairly quickly, and then what the next steps are here. So I'll hand it over to.
Sure. Yes, so for the record, Megan Karen, Chief of Staff. I think you might wonder why I'm here doing a place brand audit with Director Hannum, and I thought just a little bit of background might be helpful. Early on, Director Hannum had, I think, brought up the idea of some type of tourism or destination website in relation to the uptick in visitors downtown, mainly due to the Performing Arts Center. And she had kind of thrown out some ideas, and I thought they were really great, but I felt like it was a little cart before the horse. And that we were onto something, but we couldn't really identify it. We didn't really have a way to communicate, you know, who we are, what we're doing, why you should come here to the public in a cohesive manner. I kind of latched on and said that I was, curious and interested in looking at communications internally as well as externally, but really being consistent with our branding, our messaging, and being able to do that in a cohesive manner. And we kind of talked through this. I didn't really have the, industry verbiage as we were trying to decide like how we should actually go about this and what it actually is, what we're trying to achieve. But it struck me when there was a congressional staffer who had called and asked some information about a particular project that we were working on. I can't recall which one. And he said, Nashua does such great things, but the rest of New Hampshire doesn't really hear about them. And that really resonated with me because I think, a lot of us, our team, I'm very proud of the work that we've all done. We kind of put our heads down and go and accomplish things, but we don't have a cohesive story. How do we communicate that with the rest of the world? And so that, I think that's kind of where we started with this. Alderman Senate last night, actually, I felt like I was listening to myself. He brought up the New Balance factory in Londonderry, And I think he said, I get so frustrated or annoyed because what can we be doing to bring businesses here to Nashua? In terms of, I think he was talking about the culture. And this, part of this initiative will do exactly that. So I'll hand it.
It'll at least give us the language to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about the actual project and what we hired on Civic Brand, our consulting firm, to do. We started with kind of what is place branding versus place making. We're looking at essentially the end goal, getting to where we can actually do a good job of marketing. And there's two ways that we're marketing here. So we're talking about, as city government, being able to communicate with our residents and the wider world what we're doing and what we're accomplishing. And then there's kind of the tourism side that's like how we build our ambassadorship. You know, what do we put on T-shirts? What are we excited about within the community, and how do we communicate that out? So we're recruiting new businesses, helping build new businesses, retain people, all of that. So it just kind of went through the difference between place branding and place making, which we're actually doing both of those things within this scope of work. So a brand is the shared system of beliefs and values that define an organization. So this is talking about how we're building our story. So it's not just, place branding is not just logos and colors and fonts. It's a lot about how we build our story and what our history is and where we're going as a community, both realistically and aspirationally. Let's see. So this was kind of a fun aspirational, is like a true place brand is a reflection of the community and brings together a diverse set of goals, individuals, and aspirations that everyone can buy into. And then place making, let's see here. There we go. So place making is the process of designing and enhancing the public spaces. So we're taking our story in the place branding side and then putting into our built environment and centering it around the people that live here and that use the spaces. So we're fostering social interaction, we're building economic activity, and that strong sense of place within these placemaking activities. And it's really, the purpose of this is to draw foot traffic, increase property values, and increase our economic activity within the community. So why a brand audit? So we started with a brand audit because we weren't really sure what we already had. We have we've gone through kind of a few different iterations of what we look like, and wanted to see what we already have and how people view us already. So our objective was to build on our existing brand and help Nashua to become a more desirable place to live. So again, building our story and trying to find out what makes us unique. We are kind of in the Mill region, and so trying to figure out what differentiates us from Manchester versus Lowell, Lawrence, lots of mill communities within this area. So trying to figure out what that is. So cohesive brand, strong identity is an investment, and so we are going to kind of continuously need to invest in that as we try to build that story. So something that came out of this brand audit that we'll find over the course of the findings later is that we have a lot of assets here. We have arts, we have outdoors, we have buildings, we have housing, we have businesses, We have entertainment. We just haven't really figured out a cohesive way to talk about it when we're recruiting new businesses. So that's really what a brand audit is doing, is pulling all those assets together and creating that cohesive story. And again,
Sorry.
yeah. So we're talking about how residents can be ambassadors for us in retention and recruitment. Doo-doo-doo. Here we go.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We have to keep doing that.
Yeah. The ultimate outcome is having a deeper understanding of our identity, values, and direction of our city, and giving us a foundation to make decisions about how we talk about our community and how we move forward with decisions. So our brand will help attract new investments, visitors, businesses, talent, present the city in a clear and positive light to residents and businesses, and foster and inspire civic pride in our current residents. So this audit is a summary of everything that we've learned. We conducted online research, online surveys. We did probably 80 interviews. We had focus groups. There were site visits. We had pop-ups. We had 6 different pop-up locations around the community where we asked people about how they viewed us. So we kind of used a variety of methodologies to get this information. We also had, our survey was in 3 different languages, and we saw between 30 and 50 people participating in other languages, which is really exciting. But so here's what we found. Our story is pretty vague. We have a history. We have assets that are nearby. Kind of something that comes up constantly throughout these findings are that we are called the Gate City. And that makes us in relation to other things, but it doesn't say anything about us. That we're just kind of a gateway to other places. So we talked a lot about the New Hampshire tax benefits and similar history to nearby locations in the mills. So we're trying to figure out how to take all of those assets and put them into a story that makes us different than the areas around us.
Can I just
Yeah.
add something? I think what's important there in terms of economic development is our narrative at this point is that we are sending folks elsewhere to spend their money. And so trying to figure out what our assets are and marketing them to residents, businesses, investors, whomever, of why they should live, work, and play in Nashua was a big part of that.
So we've got 3 things here that came out as kind of the forward-looking distinct vision for Nashua from the interviews and the online surveys and things that we did. So we heard from the community to emphasize inclusivity, sustainability, and a balance between our growth and our heritage. They wanted more commitments to the arts and culture. They loved our parks, the riverfront, and the river, and wanted continuous investment in our cultural amenities. And we wanted to emphasize the city's current and future potential without leaving behind our mill town heritage. And we wanted to highlight emerging elements like entrepreneurship, innovation, and revitalization. So those were the 3 kind of main takeaways from this. There we go. So, so next we're going to do developing a strategic brand architecture for our city departments. We're going to reinforce a sense of place, investing in visual and functional aspects. So that's wayfinding signage, that's placemaking, that's parks, that's green spaces, and build out an implementation plan for our kind of long-term sustainability of living the brand. So we'll start with the audit categories. We audited a lot of different categories. We're just going to go through a few of these tonight. But the general categories are identity, place, and marketing. So we'll start with identity. These came up in our aldermanic interviews. Again, this will be kind of a constant recurring issue, is that we have a convenient location, but that we need to have our own identity and not just a location to kind of jump off to other locations from. We're talking about needing to have more things to do in activated places, and then vibrancy needs to be balanced with the small town feel. And the small town feel, despite being a larger city, needs to be critical in how we move forward with how we identify ourselves growing up. Aldermen recognize the need to be proactive and plan for that strategic growth rather than just letting things happen. So we need to have a plan going forward. This was just an interesting quote from one of our interviewees. I'm not really sure what the future is for Nashua. I'm not really sure where Nashua is going, to be honest. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment where we said, we've been around for 400 years. We need to figure out where we're going if we're gonna choose that path for ourselves, rather than just wait for things to happen to us. So our vision for the community that came out of these interviews, the community has been struggling with understanding and articulating who and where we are headed. Key components of the future vision include inclusivity, welcoming, balancing growth and heritage, as I mentioned before, affordable housing, improved walkability, that small town charm again came up, green spaces, sustainability, and then the arts and culture. So these are kind of constant recurring themes within all of the things that we've audited here. So this project, our place brand audit, can develop a unique vision that is in line with what we've already put together through the Imagine Nashua Master Plan. And we're looking to drive civic pride, and that will further influence all of our ideas going forward. So civic pride is kind of the end goal, so that we can have people building families and businesses here long term. So our purpose for this is, behind the organization highlighting its roles and purpose, is serving the community. So these are quotes coming from our survey respondents. Diversity is our strength. We want to serve all Nashuans, leave no one behind, including elderly, homeless, and young, and provide opportunities for all citizens from 0 to 90.
Anyone over 90, you get to leave.
Right? Sorry, gotta find your own way. So during our pop-ups, the civic brands set up at like Wendy's and Starbucks and downtown by the library walk, and asked the community what they thought about how we could create a more vibrant and diverse Nashua. So lots of different ideas, everything from business growth to events, more cultural things. I love the idea of opening Chunkies again. So there's lots of different ideas from the community for how we can make a more vibrant and diverse Nashua. Oop. So our big ideas, the categories that came out were under affordable housing, walkability and transportation, arts and culture, green spaces and the environment, social services and community resources, economic development and small business, and cleanliness and safety. So these were the highest level categories that people were interested in and thought that could be where we aspire to be. So our goals are for this is our specific outcomes that guide our brand's direction and reflect what the project aims to accomplish. Another quote from an interviewee, "My hope and goal for Nashua moving forward is how can we help those who already live here have a more fulfilled life here in Nashua." I'd like the community to remain walkable, inclusive, and honestly walkable should go twice. I don't want community growth to mean highway expansion. DW and 101A are not the fun parts of Nashua. So we did continue to see that quite a bit as well, as downtown kind of has the biggest bang for the buck in terms of building our brand.
Can I add something here?
Yeah.
So one thing that stuck out to me is that, you know, if you look at a map of Nashua, geographically, it's long, right? Like we have Route 3 running up the middle, and someone pointed out to me, and someone being Director Cummings, he asked me where I grew up, and I said exit 6, and he said, that's not really a neighborhood, that's an exit. I was like, okay, well, that is the answer I have. And I wasn't lucky enough to grow up in like a cool, you know, Crown Hill or French Hill, or it was exit 6 for me. But this was actually a couple weeks ago. I met a friend of a friend of a friend who grew up in Nashua, and I said, oh, where did you grow up? And she said exit 8. And if there's one thing I didn't want to do, it's say that Director Cummings is right. But I think that, you know, all kidding aside, that's something that really stuck out to me too, and it's an opportunity for us to hone in on different, I mean, again, you have the verbiage, but
Yeah, building neighborhoods.
Yep.
Rather than, it's kind of the worst kind of placemaking is to be a neighborhood with an exit number. So kind of as we build our strategy, we would like to kind of create those neighborhood environments. Brand strategy, our key takeaways are priorities are downtown, the river and the riverfront, and the arts and arts amenities. Those are what people viewed as the most or the greatest level of importance to our identity going forward. They also, as previously mentioned, that the industrial heritage, the Milltown aspects should not be forgotten, but should not be the primary part of our identity. Again, proximity to Boston, as I mentioned, we can't hinge our entire identity on how we relate to other locations. And so that's going to be a real challenge in figuring out how the Gate City translates. Sustainability, inclusivity, and diversity are key parts of our government identity, not just the community at large, but the city government. And then many of Nashua's competing places are using the same color palettes we are. They have the same history as we do, and we need to find our identity separate from all of those. There we go. So positioning, so this is looking at our competitors. I'm sorry, wait. This is, the distinct space that we're looking at apart from our competitors and aligning our audience's needs and values So we looked at, during our surveys, we looked at the relative importance of all of these elements into Nashua's identity. The downtown was number one. The river and riverfront were number two. Arts and the arts amenities were number three. And then our kind of tax-free shopping at DW Highway was another one. Milltown, small town character, and then Gate City did come up as number 7. So it is a part of our identity. We just need to figure out how that we can avoid relating it to other places. And then Amherst Corridor came up as well. So now our competitors. So looking at other locations and how they will influence what we do.
Lawrence.
Yeah. So another Milltown. If you notice, all of these are blue, the same kind of colors we're looking at that we've used. So all of us kind of are very similar in the way that we present.
So you mean by the color palette?
Yes, the
Okay.
color
Oh,
palette.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
'cause I think a
yes.
lot of-
The color palette.
The thousands
No,
of people
I'm
watching
sorry.
at home.
Though,
No, the dark blue is,
Okay.
yes. is what
Lowell, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
ahead.
you. Lowell, Manchester, and Lawrence have all undergone some type of branding project. So in that way, I don't want to say they are beating us, but they are, I mean,
They're moving forward.
they're moving forward at a faster trajectory than we are, but that's okay. But it has been, I actually
I'm gonna
think.
jump in again. I was just in Lawrence, and we're light years ahead of them, especially with their downtown.
Branding wise.
Branding.
Branding wise.
Yes, branding, branding.
And actually, the Civic brand who we're using is now working with Lawrence. So they're catching up in terms of branding. But, just a quick kind of overview, compared to other places in the region, how likely are you to recommend Nashua as a place to live, to relocate or start a business, to visit, or for young professionals? And it's a little disappointing to see how people view us compared to other places.
Can you explain that graph?
Sure. So a 10 is we're the best place in the area to live. So we hit the 7 mark and we only had 6 other competitors, right? So the average was that 30% of our population thought we were kind of the best place to live in the area. So that means 70% of our population didn't see us as the best place to live in the area. 25% thought we were the best place to eat. 29% was the best place to raise a family. So it was a little disappointing to see that we weren't higher on the list for a lot of these categories.
Did these, sorry if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did these folks mention where they would rather live or where we should be
yes.
aspiring to? Was that part of the survey or did they just ask the blanket question with no follow-up?
There's like 300 pages of data, so I think that we have more information. We just, in the audit, we just got
Yeah,
an
no,
overview.
That's fine. I'm just curious to see what people were saying, like where they would like Nashua to emulate, I guess.
Yeah.
Can that be released to the committee?
Yeah, it's actually, I think, I put it up on the website.
Oh, great.
On the economic development page.
Okay.
I actually think that's the first draft kind of
Yeah.
audit. The full audit
Oh,
is
right.
about
Has not been.
200 pages and will have
Yeah.
more of the detail you're looking for. We had a condensed audit and then we condensed it down to this. So
Yes.
there is a lot to parse through.
Can you send the 200 pages to the?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes,
ask a
go
question?
ahead.
How many respondents is that based off of?
I think we had 360 or so, English, 50 Spanish, and 38 or so Portuguese respondents. So this is a compilation of all of those.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So some of the things that emerged when we were talking about how Nashua is unique or different from other places in the region. The diversity and community focus came up as the number one thing that made
Sorry, I can't see.
Nashua unique and stand out. Our location again came out as one of the unique items. Small town charm, tax-free shopping, emerging arts and culture scene, and then safety came up. So these are the things that people thought made us stand out. And then we talked about weaknesses, similar to other places in the region as well. And separate from what we were doing, lack of strong identity came up as number one weakness, which kind of justified to me why we were doing this project. But talking about limited transportation, walkability, insufficient green spaces, which is kind of a misnomer because that did come up as one of our greatest strengths. Maybe in comparison to other places, what the respondents were talking about. But homelessness and overdevelopment, so we are pretty well developed in terms of, I mean, it's been 400 years that people have been developing this community, so it's hard not to be overdeveloped. But cultural and recreational gaps were one of our weaknesses. So events and nightlife, and then our strained infrastructure. So I don't know if they went into that, what that specific topic was, but I would definitely like to see more information on that. I didn't notice if they went further here. Oop. So next is visual identity. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So,
Oops.
and there is a lot more to the visual identity than what's here in the following slides. But, you know, something that we encounter, I guess, internally is just a lack of continuity in terms of even, you know, sending out memos. What does that look like? Might use different fonts. We might have different seals, which in itself is a problem because our image for the city is our city seal. And so that we need a city seal, and that's important in some regards, but we also need some sub logos, I guess, for lack of better
Yeah.
words. So on the back end, Civic Gov, or Civic, I was gonna say Civic Plus, Civic brand will be coming up kind of like an implementation plan for how to implement this new architecture of brands, because it is kind of complicated. And then, you know, built environment-wise, just one example is they pointed out that a lot of our signage kind of blends into the natural environment. And that on the flip side, brand colors and typography, city website, things like that, they're very different than what's, you know, our signage.
Yeah, so the built environment, colors and fonts and everything are very widely diverse, and they don't match anything that's on our website or our print kind of stuff. And if you look, these are departments within city government, and you would never know that we were all in the same city, right? So that's something that we're gonna work on with Civic Brand going forward, is how do we create a cohesive feel, but give each department its own unique identity within that brand.
So can I stop you there, if I could?
Yep.
So if you look at the National Economic Development, the public library, the transit system, and the Division of Public Health, all of those were created with a previous effort that you're going through now. And that's where those colors come from. So this is not the first time around. I was on that committee back in 2010, 2011, to rebrand Nashua, go through this entire thing. So we've been here before. I think it's time for a good refresh, but I do want to just mention that there are some holdovers I can see there from the last time we tried to do this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think between that and as some of our departments kind of build out, they have not referred back to that. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're going to try to avoid going forward is there's going to be one identity and each department's going to have their sub-brand with that. And that way, as we continue to grow and change, everybody's kind of looking at the same overarching theme when they're updating their brands. So I think that the concept was definitely there, and then it just exploded without referring back to all the work that you did during that committee.
Oh, no, right there, Alden, too, that's a good question.
So, does each department, like National Recode is kind of new. I'm assuming Director Sullivan came up with that, which is, tell them it's boring. But does each department, or when we create something, they just go in and say, this is what we're gonna do, and we're just do it? So they all get kind of done in a vacuum as opposed to cohesively? Is that how it's
Yeah.
kind of being done?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is currently how we do it. You know, if recently the public health went through a kind of strategic plan, and during that they created their own kind of branding. Same with Mine Falls Park. You know, there's no reference point for any of these when they're looking at building out a brand or even starting a new program. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a department. It can be a program within that department. So we need to help them kind of figure out at least how to connect back to the larger city brand.
I mean, emergency management doesn't even have a national one.
And I think,
Go ahead.
Sorry. You know, so that's just,
yeah, they're all unique. And I think it does show, so there are some, not outliers, but for example, fire rescue, police, public library, that wouldn't necessarily be a full rebrand. There would probably be some guidelines as to like color or font, but we're not looking to change those things because those are entities in themselves, and you know, but the others you can kind of see that folks just went off on their own without kind of referring back to what the home brand is.
Is part of this having different, like, marketing consultants per department that maybe this came through a grant or something where they put out the bid and this comes back, or is it done in-house? How does it work?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of things that have been done over the years. I think Nashua Recode, I don't know if Director Sullivan actually did that or if the consultant actually put that together, I
gotcha.
think. Kind of trying to use the same colors, the same fonts, at least referencing back.
And
Go ahead.
okay.
I'm sorry, was your question moving forward?
Well, I was, from what I'm interpreting, it would be central going forward versus
Going forward, yeah.
having these individual consultants or departments as a new project comes up or item, do it and stick to a scheme.
Yeah, and I think, you know, rebranding all of these departments is incredibly expensive, and so we wouldn't want to do that all at once, and we'd have to kind of slowly rebrand as people update things. So I guess it's not really a rebrand, it's more of a reference back.
Guideline.
Yeah.
But in the future, like with, oh, hey, National Recode consultant, this is our color scheme, you need to use
Exactly.
this type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And if you know, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, National Transit System, that's like the color of the buses, like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like
Yeah.
a big deal because that's their whole color scheme. It's more about them than necessarily about the national. So I don't know how you do something like that unless that was the color scheme or logo we were going for.
Yeah, I think you were around I think that was something that you did.
Been around forever, unfortunately, but.
Yeah. So say we come up with a color like bright green or whatever, that would probably happen over the course of several years, as, you know, the transit system, I mean, we would want to do all of it at once, not one bus at a time, but, so I would say that we're probably looking at multiple years in terms of implementation of this.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, so the only thing that I will caution you on is that whenever this gets to the end of the line and something is decided on, the last time this happened, the reason you don't see more of it up there that's cohesive is because it became political football in this room, unfortunately. And so I just, that's what I don't want to see, I guess, happen again with this. Because you get, you need buy-in from the aldermen, you need buy-in from the community, or else you're gonna end up with another failed project like we had back then. I think it was 2011 was when it was Dare to Begin, it was called. And it was kind of a shame too, because a lot of money and effort and time was spent on that. I don't even think it ever got to the point where the tourism aspect of it came out, because it just all the funding for it got killed here. So whatever ends up happening has to have broad support here. And so that's the only thing that I will caution you about, because it's whatever we do, it's expensive, it costs a lot of money. You're talking about, like you said, repainting buses, you're doing, all that stuff. All that stuff costs money. So it's, whatever we end up doing, it just has to be accepted by the community at large. And not pushed through, which I feel like was the mistake of the last time.
One of the recommendations from Civic Brand was to do a very slow rollout and kind of not even talk about it as a rebrand or as a in that way we can kind of go at our own pace and kind of not get the backlash from, no matter what we do, somebody's gonna dislike it. And so I think if we can slow roll it out, and that helps our budget as well, then I think that's a good plan going forward.
An example of that might be, okay, X department, as you're replacing signs this year, make sure you're using these colors or this, that, and the other. One point I wanted to make, and I know we're spending a lot of time on like colors and signs, is if you notice, I think in the last slide, so I think the city has kind of inadvertently adopted GAD's logo.
Yeah.
So just something to be aware of. I didn't actually.
I actually have a.
Alderman Clemmons.
So it's not really GAD's logo. It might be GAD's logo, I guess, or GAD might have adopted that logo. But what I can tell you is that if you look at that Welcome to Nashua sign, that was part, and the other one there with City Hall on it and everything, that was part of a wayfinding package that we did back in I think that started in 2013, 2014. And so those signs, that design was picked by the Downtown Improvement Committee, I believe, and that design was picked by them, and most of the signage that you see was funded, or a lot of it was funded with the Downtown Improvement Committee money. So those signs, that's where that came from. So I don't know which way it went, whether GAD adopted that or it went the other way, but that's the origins of those signs.
That's good to know. Yeah. I think just one of the things that they mentioned, you know, in that even the smaller brand audit that we did to start out with was that we have lots of wayfinding signs that don't match each other, right? So that's another, you know, long-term investment as we replace things that we would upgrade. And it seems like with the red and black that was the strategy, and then it kind of pittered out as well. So I think we have to kind of stay vigilant long-term on that and make sure that we actually implement what we're planning long-term. And it keeps going. So our verbal identity key takeaways, just the one. It's unclear how much being the gate city really is important to the identity, because it was ranked 7th out of the 8 elements that we tried. So it should not feature as a prominent mark, but there might be a clever way to tie that in. So that was the key verbal takeaway. And the last piece, I think, is place, our built environment, key takeaways. That downtown is the best investment for our money because it's the most visible and it already has its own identity rather than kind of box store variety. The character and feel of the buildings downtown are completely unrelated to the character, as you mentioned before, exit 1 versus exit 5, and the character of DW Highway is very corporate versus a much more community feel in the downtown. So investing in as many of the kind of placemaking or place branding kind of things in the downtown is going to go a long way. And then, wayfinding and gateway signage is due for an update. So that is kind of what we just talked about. And then Greeley Park and Mine Falls Park are consistently mentioned as something residents love. And so kind of the takeaway was from the community was keep investing in those green spaces and the public improvements because they are kind of the largest part of why we love this community. And then the Riverfront project is going to drastically improve the feel and vibrancy of our downtown. So people are really excited about that as well. Culture. Okay. Core elements of our identity come up over and over again. Are family-oriented. Small town in a big city feel came up a lot. Nostalgia, cultural diversity, arts community, our location. And then again, the Milltown history is important to our identity, but should not factor significantly going forward. But we should at least acknowledge it within our new brand identity. And then safety and livable consistently came up in the interviews. And so it speaks to our character and charm. But safe and livable doesn't mean anything. And so we have to figure out what that means in order to use it and to recruit or to engage our residents. People and values. Perfect medium-sized town. There's an opportunity for anyone in the community to have an impact. So this was another fun pop-up response, was how would you describe Nashua's vibe? People were pretty excited about it, calm, welcoming, good bike routes, welcoming, comforting, big, small town, growing or developing. So there's a lot of really positive feelings that people have when they think about Nashua's vibe. Perceptions, this just keeps going. What is the current perception of our community? 56% of our respondents had a positive perception of the government, and 72 had a positive perception of Nashua as a whole, which is pretty good, actually. So that was a pretty positive thing to see. So anything above 50% for government is a positive. And then this was really important for me going forward as how we build the community aspects and how we get people to remain in our community and become business owners is the emotional attachment to Nashua. So this was pretty high, that people selected a 5 out of 7, 76% selected a 5 out of 7 or higher to say how emotionally attached they are to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when you were doing this, and again, we're not seeing the actual data, so
Right.
was there based on how long somebody lived here, if you were a native of Nashua compared to you moved here a year ago, just because being a native Nashuan, I'm I have Nashua's special to me because I
Yeah.
was born here, raised here, and somebody just moved here from I don't know Kansas Kansas might think differently because it's a completely different place. Obviously, they might have things back home that they are emotionally attached to, right?
Yep.
So was that part of it, or?
Yeah, we did do kind of a demographic look at this. This particular one is an amalgam of everybody, but we do have the data for people who have lived here under 5 years and over 10 years. So we do have that information.
And I would say that even though myself and probably Alderman GOV and Alderman Clemens, I think both have grown up here too, so they probably have a similar, I would hope. But there's also people that live here that still call us Trashua. So, I mean, it could go either way, I suppose, depending on what your what your environment was or how you grew up or whatever. Maybe people feel like they got to get out of Nashua, but for me, I want to be in Nashua, So that's why I was curious. Was it if the whole survey was based on people that just lived here a year, it'd be much different than if it was people that lived here all
Right.
their life. So I was hoping that there was at least a mix in there.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we've got quite a good mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the overall arching takeaway about perception of the city is that there is a lot of optimism about the trajectory of the city, and people believe that there's potential to improve with thoughtful planning and investment. So that's again same as what the comments from the aldermen were. We would like you to continue making plans rather than kind of sitting back and letting things happen to us. So that was a big takeaway from this perception portion. So that was the findings. So now we're into next steps. We've got the brand identity that's left, and then designing, picking colors and fonts and all those things, and creating a marketing strategy and an implementation plan. And then we are actually doing some placemaking in the interim, as well as we would then have multiple kind of activities after that. So if you see Library Walk there, we've already put lights up, kind of the cafe style lighting in that alleyway. We have a new sign coming probably next week. There'll be some benches that Make It Labs are gonna print for us, and we'll have the community come and paint them and put them together. And then we have a local Nashua resident who's going to do a mural on the Court Street Theater wall, kind of at the end of that alleyway, to kind of carry people into the library. So essentially, it's funny, we put a little, a photo of this up and said, look for what's coming, on our social media page. And people were commenting, I've lived here for 50 years and I didn't know that existed. And so kind of just, just finding, you know, little crevices of town that you can be a part of and be excited about, and finding new places within your community is pretty exciting. So we're gonna do a few of those kinds of activities. Yeah, so those are, I think that's everything. Yep. There we go.
Well, thank you both so much. Does
Yeah.
anyone have any, I know we made it more of a discussion ongoing versus waiting to the end, but are there any more questions, comments? Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. So, as far as those next steps, what, beyond, so everything besides the placemaking, how long do you anticipate it would take to get to the implementation plan?
I think we're looking at probably May to have at least a draft of the implementation plan and the marketing strategy. I think it may take a little bit longer depending on, we got to get buy-in from the aldermen as well as city staff, and our partner organizations. So that may take a little bit longer than that, but that's the plan as of right now.
Follow up.
Yes, so the marketing strategy, I'm sure, you know, is obviously being developed, but I imagine, can you at least give me a preview of what that might include?
Sure. So we've talked about, part of our economic mobility strategic plan is kind of targeting commuters so that they, people who leave the city to work, so that they become more engaged in the community here. And so putting up billboards is one of them, kind of targeting specific types of businesses, kind of entertainment or experiential type businesses. We're talking about collateral, even just like brochures, economic development based brochures, and then some more placemaking activities.
Go ahead.
I just have.
No, feel
Yeah,
free.
so is this, do we have money for this? Is this in your budget?
So all of these things are currently in the scope of work that we've already approved. So, and then we have a little bit of extra funding for more placemaking activities. Any of the collateral that we have to design, all of that is gonna have to come out of my budget. And then for larger things like rewrapping buses and new signage and things like
Yeah.
that will be kind of long-term.
Ongoing.
Yeah. But the kind of basic strategy around marketing the city will be within the economic development budget.
Go ahead.
So the plan is to market to folks who live in Nashua to stay in Nashua. Is that the idea, or are we gonna be trying to attract people into the city from elsewhere?
I don't actually know the full strategy yet. However, it seems like there's going to be two strategies there. Is that we have this budding tourism industry with the Nashua Center for the Arts, and so looking a little further afield to try to get people into our community, and then also trying to kind of engage the people who live here who are further afield. So they might end up meshing in the same strategy, that we hit two demographics in that one strategy, but we're still kind of in the process of figuring that out. But yeah.
Follow up. Alderman.
So just anecdotally, I can tell you that, you know, as somebody who's lived here my entire life, chose to live here, all of that stuff. I am what you would consider to be a typical Nashuan in that when the summer comes, I don't want to be here. I want to be up at my place up in Meredith, and that's, and then when the bad weather comes back, then I start spending my money here in town. However, that being said, I also know that there are a lot of new residents, one of them which I actually work with, and they are probably, well, I know because I've mentioned some stuff about Nashua, and they're unaware of everything that is here and has, and everything that Nashua has to offer. So I agree. I think, that there's probably a good portion of people just within our city that you could probably get to spend more time and spend more money in the city. But I think it would be a lost opportunity for us to limit it to that. Because I think there's also a good portion of this city that, they're like me, right? And it's just, and you can talk to any business owner on Main Street and they will tell you, from the restaurant perspective, that when summertime comes, that's the low point in the season for them as far as receipts, right? So they're down on the number of people that visit. So I think that also needs to be an area where it's looked at as far as attracting people, because that's where we're missing, I think, is in the summer. But it makes sense, right? Because we're competing with things like Hampton Beach, with Lake Winnipesaukee, with the mountains. We're competing with Boston, so it's from that perspective, it's tough. And that's where almost that strategy of getting people who maybe are looking for a new place to go and visit to come in from somewhere else. So those are just my 2 cents, and hopefully, I'm looking forward to this. I have been a huge advocate of marketing Nashua as a destination since I was first elected alderman, and that was back in 2007. And we've never effectively done it before. I thought we were close that time that we had that other brand identity. We were very close to creating a splashy website and everything, and it just didn't happen. So I'm excited for this because I think, especially now, and this is why I said unfortunately earlier when I said, yeah, I've been around to see a lot because it makes me feel old, but I have seen this city grow quite a bit. And I can remember back, when I was in high school, and there maybe being, I think it was like Martha's downtown, and maybe you had one other restaurant. And now, when you look at the vibrancy of our downtown, it's incredible compared to what it was, 25 years ago. So I think I fully support all of this. I think it was a great use of time and money. I hope that it pays off in dividends, and I really think that the number one benefactor of all of this is going to be our downtown businesses who need that, like I said, need that boost once the weather turns nice. And so I hope that is a big part of the strategy.
I'm going to add that into that before moving on to Alderman Tebow, but the marketing strategy and partnerships. I heard you say live, work, play, which is like a statewide thing, but you were referencing closer to Nashua, like having partnerships with organizations like that to partner with work and that activity lifestyle for younger adults. Also partnering with the chamber, and maybe during the summer, Nashua's a destination for business conferences, utilizing the Art Center, the Sheraton Hotel, maximizing the use of what a casino can also bring. Because I fly my employees from the West Coast out here at least twice a year. They're coming in. I'm flying them in to go to a Silver Knights game at Holman Stadium on the 4th of July, and making it more of a destination for businesses to bring their people in. I already am well aware that other hotels have conferences throughout the year, but getting them to send business downtown versus
Yeah.
how many times you got to eat at Burton's or there was a place that Tyler and I had a drink once. Like it's like a no-name restaurant.
Burton's. Burton's is great.
Well, you know, but I'd rather they be eating at Martha's, you know. But I forget what it was. But it's like one of those chain restaurants that are everywhere, and it's like not.
Grill 110.
Yeah,
Grill
it's like
110.
let's hey, if you're gonna bring people in, let's send them to the more renowned restaurants that actually
Yeah.
are locally owned and operated, and go see a show type of
Yeah,
thing.
I think, so this is my personal goal for the department, is to try to head down this kind of tourism path where we become kind of a convention and visitors bureau. We have kind of a tourism bent, like sub-department almost. And I would love to see marketing material that goes in all the hotels for our downtown, and so kind of building out a strategy around how we're bringing people to our kind of independently owned businesses. So I think that's the goal. I've talked with Civic Brand a lot about Lowell has their own special event department within economic development where they put on almost 50 events a year, and so they're now kind of becoming known as City of Festivals. So, and they do a lot in the summer. They do the folk festival and the Cambodian water festival, and they just had the St. Patrick's Day festival. All of these things, and so that's my long-term goal is to get there.
I was at the Hlua for St. Patrick's Day, and I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So no one goes there. And
Can I add something to
Yes.
that? Just speaking kind of on the flip side to Alderman Clemens' point about a new resident, that's kind of one of our goals, and something we see each day in the mayor's office is that some of our residents don't really know what we offer here. And I'll give you an example. The example being myself. Like, I grew up not knowing how big Mine Falls is. I thought it ended when you got to South. So, and as embarrassing as that is, I don't know that I'm the only one. And so really being able to take stock and tell that story and share it with our residents and cultivate that civic pride, I think it balances
Yeah.
tourism and new businesses and.
Yeah, and sometimes tourists actually know more about your community than you did growing up here. And so kind of, we have to have a multifaceted approach to getting at everybody. And we'll target a few and then kind of put kind of strategies within that. So I think that I'm pretty happy with what Civic Brand has brought us so far. And so they've had really good luck in other communities that they've worked in, and so we're excited to see what they bring us.
Alderman Teo, it's you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, we're never going to be Portsmouth. We don't have an ocean, so we're not,
Right.
it's easier to be on the ocean and be able to attract people there, right?
The
So
summer, yeah.
that's going to be, a little more difficult. But to what Alderman Clemens was saying, it's, yes, we want to bring more people here. Yes, we want people to stay here. But I think the other piece too is the economic part of it, right? We want businesses to still come here, right? We were the, mill city, then, we pivoted and we turned into more of a tech, with Sanders and Textron and some of the other companies that were around. And now we're probably pivoting again as, it's more computer-based, and I know we got the Canon company, which is more manufacturing, but, so we want to bring companies like that, or different types of companies here. I think that's, we want people to want to bring their companies to Nashua because of all the things that we bring. So I think that's an important benefit as well. I mean, I like this for the most part. I mean, I think, I'm a little worried about, getting rid of the Gate City. only because, you know, I don't want to be like, you know, Nashville, the land of possum. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's, people have that gate city in their head for so long. I mean, Manchester, I think Queen City, that's how I think of Manchester, right?
Yep.
And so it does have, at least for the people that have been here, it has that, still that ring, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we had a bowling alley, Gate City Bowl, like it was in the title of the bowling alley, right? So I'd hate to see that go and then some generic name go up there that just doesn't feel like Nashua, and then it's
Yeah.
just like, you know? But, you know, I think the money's gonna be an issue, I think. I know for what you have for the budget for this year, it's fine, obviously, because it's already approved. I think next year is gonna be awfully tight, so, and I think that could be problematic. You know, I think when we do kick this off, it'd be nice to have a big summertime party down, you know, maybe with the summer festival that we have there, the summer stroll, right?
Yeah.
Because I think I could get bigger this year, and some of that can help the branding, right? They
Yep.
connect together.
July 26th.
July 26th?
Yes.
So I was in Lowell recently, and I'm not a huge fan of Lowell. I think they're one of those cities that does this. They don't pivot well when their industries go down. You can go down there and everything's vibrant, downtown's great, and you go down there 2 years later and everything's boarded up. It like just goes roller coaster, and that's what I've always wanted to avoid here in Nashville. I don't want that roller coaster. And, you know, there was this little bookstore, and it looked like it was doing great, even though it was so small. But it was like very a diversity type bookstore, and they had beer events there, beer and books, and it looked like a cool place that would fit into a downtown like us. And like, I was thinking, this would be a great place downtown, right? So I want to bring those type of businesses in that kind of, you know, meld with the downtown feel with the restaurants. I don't want to just be restaurants. You want to have a mix of things, so people want to go downtown, want to shop here. And just the last thing to the branding that Alderman Clemmons was talking about. I remember as a kid, I felt like there was, and I'm significantly older than Alderman Clemmons, but when I was a kid, there used to be, you know, you go into a whatever the locally owned drugstore was, and there'd be Nashua maps and fun maps, not just the map of Nashua, but, you know, pictures of it and where, you know, the different places were in Nashua, the different businesses. You'd go to somewhere like a local restaurant like Poor Pierre's, and you'd sit down, and the mat that was on the table, mat, would be like Nashua, and it'd have different things about Nashua. And we haven't had that in a long, long time, right? And Nashua brand is not out there, like, at least that I know of. I don't know if you have to go to a really niche store to find something Nashua, but
Yeah.
it's
Found
just,
some stuff at Rite Aid the other day.
yeah, it's just, I feel like it's not as prevalent as it was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see that somehow with all this come back to something that somebody can take with them. Oh, I got this Nashua coloring book, or, you know, stuff like that I had when I was a kid, which again, I think I'm older than everybody here, so.
Yeah.
It's a long
Yeah.
time ago,
By Tad.
but thank you.
Alderman Govea.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, so I guess my question is, and it brings us back to the beginning of the presentation, we talked about attracting new businesses. How do you see this plan helping us attract new businesses? I mean, from just going through it, I mean, adding place marking signs is great, but I'm not really sure a business goes, oh, they have good place markings, this is where we should put our business.
I think there are a few different things that this could help with. Is businesses want to see communities investing in their community. So just by making places a little bit more beautiful or a little bit safer, I think that is a strategy in itself. But part of the marketing strategy, I think, is how we talk about the community, and what kinds of businesses we can attract with that. You know, we may not end up with like Music City or kind of those kinds of businesses if that's not the strategy or that's not the identity of the community. So in creating kind of the branding strategy, we then kind of also help create the marketing strategy for what types of businesses we're going after, as well as how we can recruit. So even just collateral or T-shirts, or, you know, just having kind of our brand out there by people wearing sweatshirts all the time. And you know, I was in Japan a few years ago and I saw a Worcester sweatshirt, And so that was really exciting to me because I grew up in the Worcester area. But so that's what we want to see out of this is just getting people excited about the community, and that investment helps businesses see the value in coming here and investing as well. So they're not going to invest $50 million in a new manufacturing plant if we're not also investing in the community. So that's kind of my reason for doing this.
So you would say it's more of a residual effect of the branding of the community would attract them more than a direct marketing towards companies that come here?
So yes, and I think there also is a direct marketing strategy. So creating kind of an economic development packet with like, what are our incentives and what kinds of spaces are available and what is the state going to help with? Those kinds of packets, the like actual collateral brochures are also a piece of this. So we're kind of doing triple duty there, I think. So that part is a part of this is can we create a way to talk about the community that can help me bring in the next pickleball bar, those kinds of things. I just called a place that might want to go into Joanne's this week that is interested in Nashua. And I've actually already referenced this audit quite a bit with the phone call, in the one phone call that I had with them, in how we can talk about the community. So it's already been helpful.
One more if I can. On a different note, I mean, this focuses, as we said, a lot around the downtown district. I represent half the Amherst Street area, and I know that's going to be the question I get from those local business owners is, how does this help me? I'm happy you guys are focusing on downtown, but my business isn't downtown and I'm still a Nashua business.
Yeah. So there's a few things is kind of rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. But so as we invest in the downtown, not every business that's going to go out on Amherst or DW is right for downtown. But they see what's happening downtown and they're excited and they want to be a part of it and they find the right location in other places in the community that are available. So just because we're investing money in a specific area doesn't mean that we're not also trying to recruit for those types of places as well. It just is a little bit more visible when it's in a district in a small little area, so our money goes a lot further, and then we can kind of use that as a recruitment strategy for how we can invest in other locations as well, and how we can get people excited about it.
Thank you.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. So, I completely understand the investment in the community will attract those that you want to come in. Used to be that you would try to go out and attract a business that was trying to relocate or was interested in moving or maybe something like that. But the reality of that is that we, in New Hampshire at least, don't have the incentives that Massachusetts or other states have to attract a business like that with a subsidy or with something, along those lines. So it's hard to compete that way. But what you can do is you can create a community that people want to go to. And if the desire is that, you have a vibrant place, then that kind of makes it a natural fit for some of these businesses, and they want to move here anyway. And so they'll overlook some of the obstacles that maybe they might not have in Massachusetts or other places. So the other thing, so getting back to like some of the marketing things, I will say that working in Massachusetts, and having relatives or in-laws in Massachusetts, people think that New Hampshire is like an exotic place. It's when you're down there. I tell people that I live in New Hampshire, and they're like, "You do?" and you work here, and it's like, yeah, it's a half an hour up the highway. And so I think there's an opportunity there. I don't think we should limit marketing ourselves to just New Hampshire, because I actually think our bigger opportunity is our friends to the south, to get folks here, because people like New Hampshire. We have a very good reputation as far as a place to visit, particularly with folks in Massachusetts. So we already have a built-in advantage there. The other thing I want to ask, with all of this, I hope the answer is yes, but are you engaging GAD, the chamber, and other businesses in this?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so they've been a part of our focus groups, the Downtown Improvement Committee, the Great American Downtown, both the staff and the board. The chamber has been a part of everything. I'm actually going to do this presentation for them on Thursday at a board meeting. So yes, we're definitely working with all of the nonprofits in the area, especially those that are marketing the community as well. So.
Yeah, so has any thought been put into partnering, especially with the marketing budget, right? So could probably be leveraged and go a lot further if we had sponsors, if we had folks that we're doing business with to kind of help promote both, like a business and the city. Some of these places are doing it anyway. Like I'm thinking of the two casinos, for example. The Performing Arts Center certainly is doing that. So I don't know if there's opportunities there to kind of create new partnerships with some of these businesses and some of the hotels, maybe some of the other businesses in Nashua, to use a joint marketing budget to further that, even what might be limited from the city side, to get that to go even further.
Yeah, it's something we haven't really talked much about yet because we haven't gotten to that marketing strategy, but that's is now on my to-do list.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think there's, obviously, if there's joint ventures to be had, then I think, for example, I'm thinking of just as no idea if they'd be interested or not, but I'm just throwing this out there, but we have 6 or 7 breweries in Nashua, right? And so if they got together and pooled their money and the city put up money, could you do a campaign that got people who were interested in craft brewing to the city? Similar, just pick an industry that's in Nashua, the restaurants downtown, whatever. Maybe it's the restaurants on Amherst Street. I don't know. But if you kind of create these marketing strategies with these places, maybe we could actually get people we could make our dollars go further.
Yeah, I was just gonna say quickly, we did actually do kind of a collaborative marketing campaign last year for Burger Week. Or Burger Month rather, is August. So we had a bunch of restaurants on Amherst Street and on DW Highway and Northeastern Boulevard and downtown, all did a specialty burger, and we did kind of a large collaboration there. So we've got mini versions of that so far. So I think that is certainly something that we could look into more.
He was up north.
I probably was.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Well, and just to piggyback off of that, my sense, especially from some of the downtown businesses, is that they're eager to cross-market and collaborate, and we just need to assist so it's already happening organically, and so we just need to assist in doing some of that. I'll give you an example, and it is a great idea, and it also makes me mad because sometimes Manchester beats us to stuff that I know we can be doing. So they're doing, and I just pulled it up, Greater Manchester Restaurant Week, and I think it's sponsored by the Palace Theater. And I think it's around their show right now, which is Escape to Margaritaville. And we have restaurants here, we have a performing arts center, so I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I've talked with a couple of the restaurant owners about like a prefix menu where you could buy a ticket to a show and pay for your prefix meal. So that's something that we're collaborating to figure out if we can make that work. So there's quite a few kind of promotional type things, as well as some of these more kind of physical improvements that we can do. So that there's no shortage of strategies or ideas, I think. It's just about figuring out what's implementable and how many partners we can find, and yeah.
I'm going to tell you something that the city employees do well, and I saw it more as marketing, and I actually stole the idea, but since it's government, it's not really stealing, because,
Right.
it's for everybody. But
R&D, rip off and duplicate, that's,
I always notice that there's city staff having meetings or having coffee or whatever, not just downtown, I've seen them throughout the city. And I started doing that with company meetings, and we go branded out. I brand everything, but I run my company like I'm an electrician, not a social worker. But I saw that, and I said, what a great opportunity to meet other small business owners, to also contribute to the local economy, have a meeting, and then network at the same time. And, I've been at Riverwalk, Jaja's, Press Cafe, all within the last probably 7 business days, when I'm able to drive. I got something going on here with my arm. But, and I've seen Sam do it, I've seen Matt, I've seen you guys down the public health department, and I saw what a great way to engage the community at large and get to know people in the business community. So you guys are doing stuff like that already. Yes.
So I think overarching, and I've heard it a few times from my colleagues here, but I would say with this whole process, it's really the stakeholder engagement and community engagement on it. I think it's always a tough sell when something kind of just gets thrown at us and it's, here's what us five came up with, we hope you like it. So I think we really, especially when it comes to the branding of our city, we can't have enough input from the community itself. And then I would just say what I would like to see, especially in the marketing strategy and the implementation plan, is just some just performance indicators that tell that it's working. Specific metrics we can look at and go, okay, this investment worked because we hit X, Y, and Z. I think that would make it a much easier sell to continue the program and be able to say to our residents, our constituents, so yeah, we invested X amount of dollars, we hit these metrics that we were looking to hit, and obviously we want the metrics to not be easy to hit, but like honest metrics of where we think this can get us, and really see where we rank up. And I think that I've seen a lot of projects in the city go where we don't really have these indicators, and it's like, okay, are we successful? Are we just doing it to do it? Like, where do we stand here? And I think that's where a lot of the public sees it and they go, huh, but like, so like, are they doing what's right here? And I think having a clear set of indicators would really be helpful, especially on a rebrand for sure.
yeah, definitely.
All right. Don't see any further questions. Thank you both so much for having a great conversation with us.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. Thanks for having us.
Communications,
None,
new business,
none,
new business ordinances.
none.
There is O24-042, and Alderman Thibodeau asked me to keep it on the table without objection. All right, great. All right. Alderman Govea?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped.
You missed page two.
I missed the, sorry. General discussion. Public comment. Remarks by Alderman. I'll just say one quick thing. I wanted to thank the mayor and Representative Goodlander. I met with them today, as well with a bunch of other public health, Medicaid providers, nonprofits, about the impacts that Medicaid cuts will have, not just federally, but here in New Hampshire, and how it also impact the welfare budget, because there's a line item that covers medical deductibles and co-pays and out-of-pocket costs for low-income people. So it looks like someone's going to pay. It's going to be the city of Nashua, because they were legally required to. but I wanted to thank her for taking the time to speak to so many Medicaid providers. Alderman Goya.
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 8:29 PM.